KP's Video News. It's KP's Video News, y'all. It's KP's Video News, y'all.
That's right. It's KP's Video News, y'all. And we doing what we got to do, y'all. Black people in Portland struggle to be heard amid the protests. And in my last episode, I was talking about the protests that they had declared a riot over the weekend in Portland. But this is a whole different subject. This is the subject of what's going on with the black people that live in Portland. So the chaotic and often violent protests against racial injustice have topped the headlines for days, but lost in the shouting are the voices of many black Portland residents themselves, and their feelings about the unrest are nuanced and diverse. Some feel overwhelmingly white crowds of protesters, and particularly those committing vandalism, are co-opting the Black Lives Matter movement. Others welcome white demonstrators because their larger numbers, they can draw attention to the city's racial inequality in ways that black demonstrators alone can't. And you have some that believe that there can't be a Black Lives Matter movement without defunding the police. Others say a recent vote to cut a specialized gun violence reduction unit is behind a sharp spike in shootings that devastated their community. Primarily, there's a persistent worry that a critical opportunity for achieving racial justice in Portland's tiny black community could be lost. Many cite competing voices and the harsh glare of a national spotlight, which has reduced the situation to a culture war when the reality is much more complex. It happens so much that the things that we care about get hijacked and get put on the back burner, and that just gets put into a big barrel with everything else, said Neil Anderson, black business owner. We all want the same thing, but so often we get drowned out. The city's Black Lives Matter protest rocketed into the national consciousness in mid-July when Donald the D.C. Dunce Trump sent special agents from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to protect the federal courthouse that had increasingly become targets of protesters. The action galvanized the city and united demonstrators, but it also exposed a simmering tensions between black demonstrators and their white allies, as well as disagreements among black residents themselves about the way forward. The Wall of Moms, a group of mostly white women and self-described parents, gathered nightly to form a human chain between the protesters and the federal agents. Within 2 weeks, the group had imploded, with some black community leaders accusing its leadership of trying to monetize their movement. The group reformed under black leadership and a new name. Demetria Hester, a black woman who leads the new Moms United for Black Lives, said the departure of federal agents and the dissolution of the Wall of Moms has refocused the protest. These are moms who actually want to make our reparations happen, make this revolution happen, she said. Carson, who helped lead peaceful gatherings in downtown Portland, has mixed feelings. He says white protesters who commit vandalism and taunt law enforcement are distracting from his message, but he also recognizes that they are drawing attention to racial injustice in a way he never could. What white people have is something we don't, and that's rights, said Kaysen, as he prepared to lead another peaceful rally with several other black men. We're fighting alongside them to be equal. The Portland Police Bureau, with its newly appointed black police chief, is for many black residents just as polarizing as the protest. For many, part of breaking down racial barriers means defunding the police entirely. The city population is less than 6% black, but people of color were disproportionately stopped by a gun violence reduction team. An analysis of police use of force published last month found that in 2019, officers were much more likely to use force against black people, and particularly young black men, than other groups, despite overall trends toward less use of force. It is the entire culture of the Portland Police Bureau that is fundamentally unmanageable and must change, said Joanne Hartsley, the city's first black city councilwoman and an activist who has pressed for police reform for 30 years. 30 years is a long time to be asked for the exact same reforms. The difference now is that there are tens of thousands of Portlanders who want the exact same thing. In June, the city council cut nearly $16 million from the police bureau budget. The cuts shuttered programs like the Gun Violence Reduction Unit, a youth services program, and ended the presence of school resource officers in 3 school districts. In July, the city experienced a sharp rise in gun violence that was overwhelmingly hurt black people. There were 99 shootings, more than triple the amount from the previous July, and the city has tallied 366 non-suicide shootings this year compared to 388 in all of 2019. Roughly 2/3 of the victims in July were black, said the police sergeant. Kimberly Dixon, who lost her son to gun violence in 2013, said the dissolution of the gun violence reduction team has hurt the black community. And Ted Wheeler, the mayor, said he is working on a solution that will be made public soon. You took away the expertise that was there, the relationships that were there, Dixon said. That connectivity is important. Historical context is important. When you disbanded it, did you rebuild? This is the carnage that is left in the community. Some black residents, however, say they can't imagine racial justice in their city without doing away with the police. Vandalism and even violence during protests to elevate black grievances after hundreds of years of oppression is appropriate, they say. Teresa Redford, head of the Don't Shoot Portland and a former mayoral candidate, said people who are questioning the legitimacy of protests through so-called direct action against police are on the wrong side of history. There are people that are hell-bent on protecting the status quo and the system as the way it is, even if the outcome doesn't serve us, she said. The politicizing of black people is not only vicious, it's violent, and we're not being heard. The disgusting people, in my opinion, are the people with guns and tasers that are attacking people that are showing up to protest. When we talk about anarchy, you know that we have stolen people that were brought to stolen land where they used us as slaves, and I think people are realizing that, including white people. And all this stuff is got to change, man. It's changing. It's changing little by little, little by little. So we have some activists nationwide, and they're on a crusade right now, and to save the Black Lives Matter art from being disposed of or defaced. As protests over the killing of George Floyd spread across 50 states, Black Lives Matter art popped up on the wall streets, signs, and thousands of boarded up businesses that have been shut down due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The murals and graffiti by protesters and professional artists tell a story of pain and resistance, expressions that will become historical artifacts from the largest civil rights movement in United States history. But in some cases, the art has already been destroyed or taken down. A Black Lives Matter painting called for an end to racism was vandalized in Fayetteville, North Carolina. A Black Lives Matter painting outside Trump Tower in New York City was defaced with buckets of black paint as the vandals shouted, "All Lives Matter." A 140-foot colorful mural in Spokane, Washington was vandalized with splashes of white paint. In Lansing, Michigan, and Brownville, Texas, artists worked to restore defaced murals of George Floyd. Moreover, as businesses opened up across the country, art-covered plywood started to disappear. But in Minneapolis, where Floyd was killed, local activists have launched efforts to preserve the art and to keep it in the community. And as a video, so they stated they don't really watch those videos anymore because they feel like they're they are very detrimental to my mental health. And they're talking about the videos of George Floyd being murdered, and you have people that really are being affected by this mentally, and that's one thing they're not talking about, especially kids that are being affected by this, that are literally scared to death right now. And protesting daily took on a toll on her physical and mental health, and there was some days she said she couldn't even get out of bed. But a few days later, as she drove to work, a new piece of protest art caught her eye, and the emotions it elicited toward her experiences really powerful and uplifting moment. It was a big, colorful piece. It was something more than just straight to the point. And I remember that it was like the first time, in my car that I felt something, like really felt something that wasn't these weird kind of gray area emotions. I felt like we've been hurt, and I felt like people this time get it. Like it's not just black people that are watching this video and are being like, this has happened again and again and again, she added. This time everyone has heard, and our city has heard, and the United States and the world has heard, because the protests are nationwide now, worldwide. So, meanwhile, others seeking other ways to support the protest and keenly aware of the power of visual art, Kelly said that she also became intrigued by the idea of preserving the murals that honored George Floyd. And Kelly launched her own project, Memorialize the Movement, and has since connected to join efforts in saving the art. Said these beautiful, elaborate murals have been an expression of grief. It has been a way for black people to cope with what's happening and to express their pain, their anger, and their hope that they have for a better America, for a better Minneapolis. Over the past couple of months, Zeller and Smith has been working with other activists to track down artists and convince businesses to donate the art instead of getting rid of it. She has been picking up the plywood art in a truck and has so far collected more than 40 pieces in a warehouse. Zeller Smith hopes to find a home for the pieces, one that will keep them in Minneapolis and accessible to the city's black community. I feel like the art deserves to be here and to serve as a reminder of our power as a community, she said, adding that it is important to preserve all forms of expression and not just the pretty art, because the authentic message of expression were the pieces that really started my healing process. So they're doing some good things over there, and they're trying to preserve the art, the George Floyd art and the Black Lives Matter art. And so, it's a good thing. It's a good thing, and that is a piece of history. Like you said, it's the biggest and the largest civil rights organization in the United States, and basically it's all over the world right now as we speak. They're having it in England, they're having it in Paris, they're having it in Europe, they're having it in all over South America. It's all over the world right now, in Canada. So it's not just here in the United States. So here's a story that's near and dear to my heart. Deutsche Bank hands over Trump's financial records to the Manhattan DA, complying with the subpoena. Deutsche Bank complied with the subpoena from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, turning over financial records of President Donald the D.C. Dunce Trump to District Attorney Cyrus Vance. The subpoena was sent last year, and financial records requested, including statements provided when he took out loans. The report comes amid an ongoing legal battle to subpoena 8 years of personal and corporate tax returns. The Supreme Court recently rejected Trump's attorney's argument that a sitting president is immune from criminal investigations, paving the way for Vance's team to secure Trump's taxes, even if they are successful. However, the records are not likely to be made public until after the election. Vance has not released full details of investigation, instead calling it a complex financial investigation following public reports of extensive and protracted criminal conduct at the Trump Organization. A court filing indicated that Vance may be looking into potential charges of fraud, likely based on the reports the Trump Organization would inflate property values. These reports describe transactions involving individuals and corporate actors based on in New York County, but whose conduct at times extended beyond New York's borders. Vance's team said this possible criminal activity occurred within the applicable statutes of limitations, particularly in transactions involved in continuing pattern of conduct. Bank fraud, tax fraud, all kind of fraud. Yep, president is a fraud. And that's like, yeah, you in a heap of trouble, boy. You in a heap of trouble. And this is another story, and I got to put it out there because this guy is a ridiculous fool. Kanye West is a ridiculous fool. He's talking about running for president. He has no chance of winning. Now you got somebody like Nick Cannon talking about, yeah, I support Kanye West. Both of you guys are coons because the only thing that Kanye West is trying to do is trying to help Donald Trump win this election by stealing those handful of votes from those young people that follow Kanye West. Those young people out there that are brainwashed, that are following Kanye West, that it might be their first time voting, and they would take votes away from Biden if you vote for Kanye, that doesn't stand a snowball's chance in the microwave of winning the election. So you cannot waste any votes on Kanye West. You just can't do it. You just cannot do it. And hey, like people said, this is some garbage. So Wednesday, Democrats have filed a complaint to state officials about Kanye West. The Democratic Party, in a separate challenge, claimed that the rapper's team submitted his papers late. They also alleged that Kanye used bogus signatures and addresses in his nomination forms, and his paperwork included signatures from Mickey Mouse and Bernie Sanders. The complaint contained affidavits from 6 people who say they were duped in the signing West forms. The Democratic Party in Wisconsin is urging state officials to block Kanye West from being on the state's presidential election ballot in November, claiming that he submitted his nomination papers late and used bogus signatures. The party has filed a complaint claiming the rapper's team did not submit his papers to the Wisconsin Election Commission by 1700 hours on Tuesday, the formal deadline, and the complaint also alleged that West's papers included bogus signatures and addresses. And so you had, among the signatures submitted were Mickey Mouse, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, and 2 of Kanye West had his name on 2 of them. One circulator used a California address, which they haven't lived at for 3 years, the complaint claimed, while others used an Illinois address listed for the industrial purposes. And the complaint alleging Democratic Party complaint also included affidavit from 6 individuals who said they were duped into signing the rapper's papers, according to the Milwaukee newspaper. Milwaukee resident Cheryl Purnell says she unknowingly signed West's nomination papers outside of Walmart when a circulator claimed that her signature was required to ensure she was registered to vote in the November election. She said it was her affidavit. And if I had known that, I wouldn't have signed the papers. Absolutely not. Kanye would not get my vote, and I think it's a joke that he's running for president. Wanda Thompson, also a Milwaukee resident, said she signed West nomination papers after the worker told her he was being paid $1 per signature. If he hadn't told me he was getting paid for the signature, I would never sign the nomination paper. A separate challenge to West candidacy by local bank attorney Joseph Santler raised several of the same points. So yeah, you got, the Republican Party is basically funding the Republican Party, and they have been caught red-handed. They're the ones that are funding Kanye West's so-called attempt to run for office. I'm going to say that again. The Republican Party is funding Kanye West's garbage attempt to run for office. So don't get fooled, people. Don't be fooled thinking that, because he told that lie. This is the part you got to remember. About a month ago, he said he told this lie. Yeah, I just lied to Trump. I don't like Donald Trump. I just lied to him. So Kim could get some of those people out of jail. I don't support Trump. When you went to the White House hugging Donald Trump, you had your little red Make America Dumb Again hat on. He was all up in the White House. Jim Brown was just sitting in the chair, shaking his head like this. You over there hugging Trump. Trump he's my white daddy. And now you're gonna try to turn around and tell people that you're not doing this to help Trump? Man, you're the biggest Uncle Tom and the biggest turncoat that ever walked the face of the United States. And besides Larry Elders, you're Uncle Tom. That's you, Steve Harvey, and any other Uncle Tom out there that have been kissing Trump's butt, Mike Tyson included. All you guys are fake, phonies, and just stay out of the way, because what you're doing is a major violation. You guys are all foul. You're totally foul, and you need to check yourself before you wreck yourself.
KP's Video News. It's KP's Video News, y'all. It's KP's Video News, y'all.
Peace.